Hey, it's Mo, and this is episode 86 out of 100 micro power packed episodes, giving you what you need to succeed to grow your book of business and your relationships in your career. All right, 86 out of 100. In this set of 5 that I'm going to give to you now, we're going to continue our journey on how to get introduced to anybody you want, either somebody completely new or to rekindle a dormant relationship. In these 5 episodes, I'm going to talk about scalable ways. So these are ways where you can meet a lot of people at one time. And in the prior 2 sets of 5, so the prior 10 episodes, we talked a lot about targeted, where you want to meet a specific person, targeted with scale, sort of in the middle, where you can meet one person, maybe others. And in this bucket of 5 videos, we're going to talk really about scalable ways. Now, here's all I want to cover in this episode. Scalable ways are important. And that's because if you've got a particular expertise and you want to get it launched to the world, or if you have a new offering, you want to get it launched to the world, a lot of times you're going to want to use one of these more scalable methods. The couple that I'm going to cover in these set of episodes are speaking and webinars, using social media, and what we call episodic writing, or writing that can get your name out there into the universe in a real significant way. We'll talk about how to do that on paper, digitally, and things like that. The 5th episode I'm going to cover in this set of 5 is I'm going to wrap up all the different lead gen or all the new relationship methods all together and give you sort of some pro tips on how to execute those and some things to think about on those. The main thing I want you to think of as you get ready for these 5 episodes in a row is be thinking about who are the groups of people that you want to get introduced to. So here, we don't know we want to be introduced directly to Jane Smith. That's more of a targeted method. Here, it's more like groups of people, CFOs at a certain type of organization, CEOs at a certain industry, a certain size. So be thinking of the buckets of people and be thinking of the places they go to consume content. Either that's live events or the kind of things you can put on yourself, or maybe association events or things like that they're interested, like conferences that they would go to, whether those are in person or digital, things that you can create yourself. What are the ways that they like to consume content? And what we'll do is, if you're thinking about those kind of things, as we get to these next couple episodes, I'll show you some very specific targeted ways that you can get in front of them with something of value, start to deepen the relationship, and then create a lot of value from there for them in a way that could result in you being hired, obviously, which is sort of the point, or a deepening relationship too. So not a ton of content in this video. I just want you to be thinking about what are the ways that what are the places your types of person goes to consume content, and what are the various ways that they consume content. And that's what I want you to have in your mind as we get into these next episodes. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a link down in the show notes. If you want to go deeper on this, head over to grab a copy of the Snowball System. Chapter 6, Lead Tactics is the name of that. That's where it's going to go a lot more in detail if you want more of something you can follow along visually. But I'm going to give you some of the top ways that we've seen our clients be really successful about meeting new people in these next couple videos. So this is a short one. Just be thinking about what I ask you to think about. If you want more, go grab a copy of the Snowball System down in the links below. All right, that's it for this video. As with all these, I hope this one helps you help your clients succeed. Hey, it's Mo, and this is episode 87. I had to look at my notes. 87 out of 100 micro power-packed episodes helping you grow your book of business, your relationships, and your career. All right, in this one, we're going to talk about 2 different scalable ways of meeting new people. The 2 are very related, so we're going to put them together. One is speaking, and the other is webinars. If you think of speaking, we define that as more of a live in-person event. Webinar is more of a live virtual event. So both have a live nature to it. One's in person, say at a conference or something you create yourself, or webinars as more people are dialing in digitally. In both of these, the keys to your success are A, adding tremendous value. Pack it in. I mean, teach everything you can teach in the time that you've got allowed. You can teach too much because you can overwhelm the audience. Generally, you want 3 major points. There's a magic of 3s. You've heard me talk about that again and again and again, but that'll help people remember it better. And then your other key to success is to have some kind of call to action at the end. something that you can offer to everybody or a specific subset of the group to get more. They somehow communicate with you in a direct way. When you're speaking at a conference, you don't necessarily know who's going to show up. On a webinar, the good news is you probably have their email address because they had to do that to sign up, potentially, but you could have multiple people in one person's office, and some of the people, you don't have their email because they might be watching this together. So here's what a call to action looks like. Let's say that you're going to have a 45-minute talk. Well, you want to have your whole talk be about something that someone can get afterwards. In other words, you don't want to spring something on everybody at the end. Hey, to get this random thing, email me. You want the point of your talk to be about the thing that they're going to email you about. So here's an example. If you're a lawyer and you have some kind of deep expertise in the perfect way to construct a transaction or a deal in a merger and acquisition kind of environment, you're a transactional lawyer. Well, you would want your whole talk about some kind of data or a very specific clause in the contracts that's really important and emerging, or the right way to negotiate the best deal for everybody involved in a way that not only results in something that's a good price and has the right terms, but also creates a great long-term relationship. Maybe you got some secret sauce around that. So whatever you talk about, whatever your process is, whatever your database is, whatever your new insights are, whatever, be showing on the screen the thing that people can get later. In other words, again, you don't want to the trap to avoid is to spring something on them at the end. So let's say that you had some database of clauses and how they correlated to feature success. Maybe you've got an X-step process that's perfect to construct the deal that results in the right price and the right terms and the right long-term relationships, not just short-term success, but long-term success. Whatever that is, be showing on the screen the thing people can get later. Is it a white paper? Is it access to a database? Is it some kind of benchmarking report? Whatever you're showing, be flashing images of that on the screen. But then the key is you sort of take it away. You're just talking about it. That's really important. Then at the end, what you say in your call to action, whether it's an in-person event or a digital webinar, is you say, hey, if you'd want the thing that I've been showing, all you have to do is X. So that's your call to action. Is X a sign up on a web page? Is it you hand them your business card? Is it hand you their business card? Is it email you and ask for it? As simple as that. No matter what it is, make the call to action super simple. And what you're doing from that is if you've added tons of value, which was our first point, and you've been showing them a thing they can get later, and then they're sitting there thinking, man, I want that thing. Then at the end, you say, hey, if you want that thing, just do something, email me, hand me your business card, whatever. Now what you've got is everybody that's in the room, you've got all their contact info or the relevant info. You can figure out based on the company they worked at, their title, whatever you want. For the people that are the very best, obviously you're going to email everybody. You're going to send everybody the thing that you've promised. You're going to fulfill that commitment. You're going to do it quickly. You're going to block off time to do it right after that very night. You want speed is important on this. But for the people who appear to be perfect clients of yours, as you interact back with them, you can offer your gift to get method, which we've talked about in prior episodes. So whatever the personalized, deeper dive, one-on-one sort of, here's how this thing applies to you, you can offer that in your email back, or maybe even call them if you get their mobile number or whatever. And you could say, hey, would it be helpful if we did a deeper dive and I blank? Whatever's in the blank is your gift to get. Walked you through this process and how you could use it. Reviewed your last couple transactions to see if you have the clause in there. Had a conversation about our 7-step process, and we could just talk about what might be helpful to add or change about your current process. Whatever your gift to get is, you're going to offer it to people that you would love to be your clients, and some percentage of them, call it half, 60%, 70%, because they've warmed up to you, because they've already seen you in action. Sidebar, whenever you're giving a speech or a webinar, you are developing a relationship with that audience. They're feeling comfortable with you. They've seen you on stage, so to speak, whether in person or digitally. So you're going to get a very high acceptance rates on these gift to get offers. Oh man, that'd be great. So if you've done it the right way, we typically see 60, 70, 80%, 90% plus acceptance rates if your offer is valuable and you've developed that relationship in the right way. So that's how you handle speaking and webinars. They're both very similar in the way that they succeed. What I'm going to put down in the show notes is a ridiculously powerful link to somebody named Pat Quinn. I've linked to him once before in these videos, so you may have already stumbled upon that. I think he's the only person I'm linking to twice for the exact same content, but this is so good, you got to check it out. He's a worldwide speaking expert in teaching you not only how to connect with your audience, but how to convert to business. I've gone to his programs. I know friends like Michael Hyatt have gone to his programs and used his methodology. Tony Robbins' team uses his entire methodology. Like, it's insanely powerful. This interview I did with Pat is remarkable. It is a high recommend. So if you ever use speaking or webinars or would like to, check out that link in the show notes because it goes way deeper, and Pat crushes it in this interview because he knows our audience really well because we prepped a lot. Actually, we've done this a couple times, and he knows our audience. He knows you really well, and we tailor his advice to people just like you. So check that out. It's a high recommend. All right. That's the end of this one. I'm going to continue and give you a couple more methods that have a lot of scale in the next couple of videos. As with all of these, I hope this helps you help your clients succeed. Hey, this is Mo, and this is episode 88 out of 100 micro power-packed episodes that are helping you grow your book of business and your relationships in your career. All right, in this one, what I want to talk about is using social media as a lead generation tool. This is a tricky one. This is tricky because few people do this well. There is a method to do it. I will say this up front. Most of the people who choose this method, which is relatively few relative to the other methods we've been talking about, it can work. Most of the people who use this method are more high-tech oriented experts. So if you're an accountant that calls on high-tech startups, this method would be really, really good. For example, typically people are using social media as a lead gen tool for more high-tech oriented things, but it can work for everybody. Let me describe how it works. Social media as a lead gen tool is to put content on the internet, use social media as a way to amplify that content, and then get really targeted about who you'd like to meet and make sure that content gets in front of them. So for example, let's say that you have a podcast. Let's say that you did an interview with somebody. Let's say that something's recorded on the internet that shows you helping people. You wrote an article, things like that. What you do with social media is you use what Jay Baer calls atomizing your content. You take that bigger content and you break it up into small little things, infographics, a short clip of video or whatever. Get that on social media and put it out there. And then for people that you'd like to meet, you can tag them in your description. You can have somebody else that you know, sort of a referral, strategic partner or referral source, share that and tag that person. You can orchestrate that a little bit. And those could be people at your firm that know somebody that you'd like to meet. Can be a million ways to do it. It's usually better if somebody else shares and tags a person without it, or to the person. Then what you want to do is typically if somebody's tagged, they're going to respond or at least take a look at it. Especially if they respond, what you can do is you want to take the one-to-many outreach, sort of what's in the public domain of that platform, say it's LinkedIn, Twitter, whatever, and then you want to go one-to-one. So let's say that we've got great content, a friend or partner of ours shares it, tags somebody, they go, oh, wow, this is really great. So already in their mind, they're thinking of you as an expert because they've gotten some of your content. They're warm to the idea that you could potentially help them. Then you can go back and forth in the public domain a little bit. So in the one-to-many world, you want to comment on their comment. Wow, thanks, James. Really appreciate what you said here, whatever. And then after you do that, now go into the messaging aspect of that particular platform. Go from one-to-many to one-to-one, and then offer your give to get. So you're staying within the domain of the whatever social media you've been interacting with. You just go to the messaging aspect, more to the private room part of it, where you can be one-to-one. And what you might say is, wow, really appreciate your comments, specifically blank, tie back to something that they said, and then say, hey, would it be helpful if we blank? Maybe it's something related to the content typically. Gave you an overview of that particular regulation and how it might impact your organization. Be happy to do this on our dime. It would take about 30 minutes. Somehow you're trying to go from the social media to actually talking in person or on Teams or Zoom or whatever. Now, here's the trap I want you to avoid. Most people use sort of a spray and pray approach with social media. So they just have a thing, have some content and throw it out there and hope something happens. Now that can work, but I wouldn't call that a way to get introduced to people. That's more of a marketing kind of thing where we just want top of mindedness and awareness. That's the goal there. We do that. It's great. We love it. But if you want to use this as more of a, I want to meet somebody approach, the scalable way of doing this is then to orchestrate some people that are going to share, tag, get other people involved in that content, and then use that one-to-many in the front of the platform, get some comments going back and forth. And then for those that engage, you're going to offer a one-to-one, very valuable give to get. Remember, easy for you, valuable for them, it leads to a next step. You want to go from the platform to actually seeing each other, either on video or in person. That's when you're going to get hired. So you can use this in two ways. One is you can use social media purely for marketing. That's fantastic. Do it. We find a lot of value out of that. We take our podcast episodes and divide them up into little 45 and 60-second clips and put those out on social media. And they're out there all the time working for us. And it's in the feeds of all the major social platforms. People love it. They get a lot of value, keeps us top of mind. But if you want to take it to the next step, and that's worth, by the way, that last thing is worth doing it, all of it on its own, but I'd consider that more of a marketing thing. If you want to take it the next step and use it as a way to get introduced to very specific people, that's when you'll use the ideas that I shared in this particular episode to use it as a way to engage in new relationships. All right. So what will I put down in the show notes on this one? I'm going to put Snowball System. I've done that a couple times, but this is one where there's some really good stuff on social media in chapter 6 on lead tactics. This is the kind of thing that few people do well. And I'd love you to just grab a copy of the book, go straight to chapter 6 if you're interested in this topic, and you can go deeper on this one. All right. That's it for this episode. We got one more really good scalable way to meet new people coming up next. And I'm going to wrap up all of our lead gen techniques in 2 videos from now and give you some pro tips around execution. All right. As with all of these, I hope this one helps you help your clients succeed. Hey, it's Mo, and this is episode 89 out of 100 micro power-packed episodes, giving you what you need to succeed to grow your book of business, your relationships, and your career. All right. We're talking about new relationships and how to forge them, how to get introduced to whoever you want. We're talking about ways to do that in a scalable way, giving you a couple examples in the prior couple of videos and several more in the 10 videos before that in targeted and target with scale kind of methods. And the last one we're going to cover in scale here is what we call episodic writing. Well, why do we say episodic writing? This writing is more about writing when you see something you should write about, as opposed to doing something on a periodic basis. This kind of thing can work on a periodic basis, but usually that gets rolled into the email marketing that we talked about a couple episodes ago these days. So this, while it can be you write a monthly column for a magazine or something like that, a lot of times what professionals do is they more write when a trigger occurs. New regulations are happening. They've got a new analysis. They've got a new insight. They've got a new process, whatever. There's some newness to it. That's why I call it episodic. So what you do to be successful in this is you write a piece of content and you want to publish it on the biggest platform you can. If you can get it in a big time magazine or newspaper, do it there. If you can do it on a big digital platform, do it there. If you can do it on your company's website or client alerts and blog, do it there. But basically choose the biggest platform you can. Get that content out into the world. And by definition, this is writing something. It's an article. Most people quit there. So the trap I want you to avoid on this one is assuming you're done when the piece posts, assuming you're done on publication day. I want you to think of that as the starting line, not the finish line. So in other words, I'd rather have you write fewer pieces and do this properly in the way I'm going to describe than write more pieces and spray and pray. Here's how you do it right. I actually don't even want you to start the process when you write the piece. I actually want to start with who do you want to get introduced to? Who are the kinds of people with scale that you would love to read this piece? Think with empathy from their perspective. What information do they need? I prefer it you actually start with the list. Like these are the 20 people I'd like to be introduced to. The more specific you can be, the better. Like literally get to 20 names. Now, I'll let you have a pass if you write something like COOs of Fortune 500 companies in the retail industry. Now, that would probably lead to names pretty quickly, but sometimes you can come up with criteria that are pretty clear that you could at least write and you know who the people you'd like to meet are. But in general, the closer you can get to actual names, the better. Okay, so you've got a list. Now think with empathy about what do they need to hear. And you're actually usually better writing for one person or very few people, if that makes sense. If you try to write for a big group of people, you'll end up being fuzzy in your clarity and or have lack of clarity. If you can think of one person you're writing for, even though you're going to broadcast to the world, if you have one person in mind, you'll write a really clear article, really good stuff. So that's a little hack to writing. Once you've written the piece, now what I want you to have is an orchestrated campaign over a couple weeks, not a couple days, at least a couple weeks, maybe even a couple months, where people that you know that know the people on your list are going to send that article or link to it to all these people, and they're going to offer a give to get. So the very fact that you're in the biggest platform you can, that's going to bring you some prestige, but there's a half-life to it. That's why you've got to act quickly. So now all your friends that you've orchestrated are going to send this piece to somebody else and say, hey, thought you might enjoy this. By the way, if you'd like to meet so-and-so, I'm sure they'd be happy to explain how this new regulation or whatever you talked about, whatever you wrote about, impacts your specific company because you're the kind of organization that they work with all the time. And I bet they would do that at their dime, on their dime. Or if they know for sure and you've worked it out with them, they can actually make that give to get offer. Now notice what we're doing there. Instead of just writing the piece, spraying and praying and hoping something happens, we've got a 3-step process here. We're focused on who we want to meet. We write the piece so it perfectly aligns with what they would benefit from hearing and get value from. Then you're orchestrating a campaign on the back end to make the offer to get you in front of them using a give to get method, like we've talked about several times in these videos. What's super powerful about that is this one piece you wrote. It takes a long time to write something valuable. This one piece you wrote now have a maximum chance of getting you a meeting with somebody. Nobody's going to hire you in reading an article anyway. And the very fact that you wrote it is going to imply to them that your time is scarce and you probably don't have time for them. So actually by writing counterintuitively, you can come across as difficult to reach, even though that's the opposite of what you're trying to do. So that's why you got to have that third step where people that know these people are getting your article in front of them and making that give to get offer to take the one to many, you've written this article for the world, and transition it to one-to-one. You're going to be able to talk with them and show how this applies to their specific situation. That is how you'll have success with this meeting. Almost everybody does this wrong. They just write the piece and hope that good things happen. I want you to start with who you want to meet, then write the piece, then orchestrating a campaign of helpfulness to get that in front of the right people, to follow up with all your friends, your strategic partners, your colleagues, everybody else that's getting in front of them, and make that offer so that you can get in front of them one-on-one. That's when you'll actually get hired. This is a really effective technique and it can work really well. Okay, so I want to end this episode with, we've covered the trap to avoid and what you need to succeed at too. So I'm gonna cheat a little bit again on this one because there's so much more in the snowball system on this particular technique and all the other ones that this is just a really good link to put down below. So I'll put a link to the snowball system again, like the last video. Skip to chapter 6. It's called Lead Tactics. That's going to give you everything you need to know to get introduced to the right people or to rekindle dormant relationships. All right, I'll close out with this. As with all these videos, I hope this one helps you help your clients succeed. Hey, it's Mo, and check it out. This is our 90th out of 100 micro power-packed episodes giving you what you need to succeed to grow your book of business, your relationships, and your career. We're almost 90% of the way done. What I want to do in this video is sort of wrap up our 15 videos that we've had on meeting new people. You saw lots of different ways to meet new people. As you go back and watch all those, or maybe you just finished with those, I want you to think about the couple methods that are the closest to leveraging your strengths, or that would leverage your strengths. The trap I want you to avoid is most people just do whatever their mentor did when it comes to meeting new people. And that may or may not be good for you. They might have been great at giving speeches and you hate it, right? Well, you could choose a different method, like interviewing others, something more intimate that leverages your strengths. What you saw in all of them, now that your mind has been exposed to all these methods, and by the way, there's even more in Chapter 6 of Snowball System. There's even more than that in our Grow Big training that we teach in our live trainings, and teach how to do every single step to a lot more, to 100x of what we could do here in these videos. But what you saw from all that is there's lots of ways, there's lots of paths to success. So you want to pick the one that's going to accomplish your goals, add value to your clients and prospective clients, and leverage your strengths. Here's a pro tip that I'd like to give you. When you're thinking about what to do next, you actually don't want to start with the lead gen methods. You actually want to start with who you're targeting, or what your targeting criteria is. Now, we have a much more robust way of doing this in our Grow Big training. This is something that's not in Snowball System. It's only in our training. And I didn't choose to do this in these videos. I'll give you a ridiculously light version here. But I didn't choose to do these in the videos because it requires some math and a spreadsheet, and there's no way to communicate that in a video. But in general, what you can do is write down who you're for. What makes a perfect client for you? Try to get it down to a couple criteria. For an example, I'll give you ours. Our criteria is we do our best work when, and now so there's your format. You do your best work when, and then add a couple bullet points. For example, we do our best work when we work with people that are high-end experts in their field. They've got one foot in delivery and they've got one foot into retaining or growing a book of business. Okay, that's great. That's all professional services. It's service-based companies with big long-term contracts. So that's thing number one. Thing number two, we do our best work when the people are relatively high paid. Our training's a little more expensive because it's the best in the business. At least that's what people tell us. So you have to be making a decent salary, or you're an equity partner at a law firm or whatever. To afford us in our comprehensive system, it makes sense that you're reasonably high paid. And then the third thing, and this is a little more nebulous, but there's some kind of compelling reason for training. So that could be revenues have fallen. It could be revenues are growing, but people are afraid they won't continue. It could be a acquisition coming up, or an acquisition just occurred. It could be that the organization just cares a lot about their people and they want to invest in them in a way that gives them the skills that they need to be successful, growing a book of business, their relationships, their career, things like that. So if you take those major criteria, people that have one foot in business development and one in delivery, they're sort of hybrid salespeople, but wouldn't like the word, right? Sales for people who don't like sales. That's the first thing. That's a criteria. They're relatively high paid and there's some kind of compelling need for training. When we see those three things, we have a lot of success. Well, you can stratify a list of organizations on that. You can determine who you're for. You can figure out who you want to target. When you've got that, then you can really think about the different methods that we've talked about in the last 15 episodes for meeting new people, because you can choose the methods that not only leverage your strengths, but also would appeal to that group of people. So that's your pro ninja tip, is actually not start with the methods to meet new people. Start with who you want to meet, and then marry that with the right methods based on your skills and where those people hang out, how they like to develop, how they like to devour content, things like that. Super ultra pro ninja black belt tip is take that list of organizations and then go one step further and write a name of individuals. So for those types of organizations, who is the perfect entry point? Is it a C-level role? Is it, whatever it is for you, you'll have more clarity if you can get all the way to human beings' names, and then you choose the actual methods that you're going to use to get in touch with them. Go back and watch the last 14 episodes, including this one, 15 total, to really get your hands around that. Or grab Snowball System, come to Grow Big Training. All right. So I'll leave you with that. If you want more on this idea of targeting, down in the show notes, I'll post an interview I did with Dr. Katrina Johnson. She is a genius. She's the person that has helped me more than any other determine all the great peer-reviewed research in the literature that gives us the insights that we build all of our training and books around in all these videos. As you've heard me quoting this researcher and that researcher, a lot of those we found ourselves, but whenever I think there's something I'm missing, Katrina's the person I go to, and then she sends me proactively all kinds of new things that pop up in the literature too. She is a genius, and in this interview, I asked her what her favorite Grow Big training technique is, and she says targeting, and then she shares how she went about developing her targeting list. So if you like that idea of figuring out who you're for, getting down to specific names to the best way of doing this, then click that link down in the show notes and you'll get the interview with Katrina because she talks about how she did it, and it's really, really, really good. All right, that's the end of this episode. As with all of these, I hope this one helps you help your clients succeed.